we look at this gospel, it's rather interesting, isn't it? The Pharisees sent this little entourage to figure out who this man is. Who are you? Are you the Christ? No, I am not. Are you Elias? No. Who are you? Are you Jeremiah? No. Are you a prophet? No. Who are you? And he says, I am the voice crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. That's who I am. Nothing more, nothing less. And the Pharisees, of course, they don't let down. Well, ask him why he's baptizing. And, of course, he says, I am not worthy to even unloosen the straps of his sandals. That's how serious St. John is and how much he knows who he actually is. He is not the Christ. He is the last prophet. And we know very well that even though St. John is one of the greats of all time, this calling out to our Lord and taking advantage of the fact that he is the last prophet is what he does even when Our Lady and our Lord come to him and his mother at the visitation. It's beautiful. But of course, who art thou? There's a good question worth asking. You see, St. John also never waffled in who he was. He baptized with water. He did not commit a sacrament. Why? Because he's not a priest. It was not a sacramental baptism. I don't care what the other religions believe. It was not a sacramental baptism. If it was a sacramental baptism, he would have been a priest of the new order, which he was not. The priest of the new order, as you know very well, was Peter and the 11. They were the priests of the new order. They did not start baptizing as a sacrament until after Pentecost, right? That's Acts chapter 2, by the way. Now, he never, ever quit, though, who he was. Think about this for one moment, okay? When Herod was full of booze and foolishness, like he, I'm sure, was a lot, he had wife number 2 go to the stepdaughter, who apparently was not the best of women, and he was drunk and stupid and being foolish, and said, whatever you want, darling, whatever you want, I'll give you whatever you want. And she said, what do I ask for, Mommy? And Mommy said, I want his head on a silver platter, the head of John the Baptist. And of course, because Herod was a drunk, horrible, miserable creature, he succumbed and agreed. The funny thing about that is that when Herod had St. John martyred, the martyrdom was not some glorious martyrdom that happened where it was in the middle of the Colosseum in Rome and there was 100,000 people with lions and tigers and people throwing food at St. John. It was done in the prison. Because again, John he did not intend to ever be in the forefront. He knew, I must recede so he may proceed, which he did. But St. John stayed true to who he was. He was a member of a very elite group, as you know, and he never denied his vow. And you wonder what it must have been like for people to actually see St. John. Here is St. John out in the middle of the boonies, baptizing. And as you probably remember, he did not wear beautiful clothing. He wore rags. He wore a leather belt. He ate honey and locust. He was a very simple man. But he knew what he was. He knew what his responsibility was. He knew what our Lord, his cousin, expected of him. And he never stopped being what he actually was. But the question we have to ask ourselves, my dears, and I want you to think about this too, is, are we actually acting like we should? That's a good question. It's worth asking, isn't it? I want you to think about that for 1 minute, okay? You know, people say, who are you? And a lot of people will say, I'm a Christian. No, what does that mean? And they give you a dissertation about what that means. You go, okay, right, great. If somebody asked one of us, who are you? How would we answer? You know, I remember when I was in my early years of priesthood, there was a neighbor girl who my parents knew her family, and she was probably about that 15-year age bracket, somewhere in there. And my mother asked her, so what do you have going on this year? Well, I have cheer squad, ballet squad, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, activity. Mother said, isn't this the same year you're supposed to be confirmed? Oh, yeah, that too. What? That too? Isn't that the most important thing happening in your life this year? You're going to become a soldier of Christ? Apparently not. And the sad part is, that's the way a lot of Catholics act, isn't it? Everything for them is, I'm a this, I'm a this, I'm a this, and oh, by the way, I'm also a Catholic. That's really disturbing. The first thing we should say when somebody asks you, what are you? Catholic husband, Catholic wife, Catholic young person. I'm a Catholic. That's the first thing I am. And I'm one of the lucky ones. Well, lucky's the wrong word. I'm one of the fortunate ones because I am allowed to live my life in order with the way God expects me to worship. That's something we're thinking about right there, isn't it? The other religions, waste of time. You know, my dears, we have to remember that there are going to be occasions when people will ask us, as the Pharisees sent the priests and Levites to St. John, who are you? Could you imagine if St. John would have said, you know, I am the Messiah. Look at me. He didn't do that. He didn't make himself out to be something he was not. A lot of Catholic men have to remember what they are, who they are, and have the courage to speak that to their fellow man. It's also important that we remember that you might have friends and family who are really good people, who are really lost and confused. And you have to ask the question to yourself, what do I intend to do? What am I going to do? Am I going to be that person who just kind of cowers in the corner and says nothing? Or am I going to be the person who has the courage to speak the truth? For I am a Catholic. Of course, the problem with that also is for a lot of people, they have to understand what that means. Being a Catholic is more than just attending Mass twice a year. And you know as well as I do, a lot of our Catholic brethren, that's about the extent of their worship. They love the Christmas service and the one with the bunny, which is pathetically sad. They don't go to Mass every Sunday. They don't observe the sacrament of penance ever. And if they do, it's because, well, you know, my third cousin twice removed is getting married and I kind of want to receive the Eucharist today. And I know that that priest up there is a real jerk and he's going to make that statement. And I don't want to, you know, do a bad communion because even though I haven't received in like a year and haven't been to confession in 5 years, I'll go to confession anyway. Opposed to actually making it a regular part of your spiritual life, which we should be doing religiously. It's also important that we remember something else, my dears, when it comes to the Catholic faith. We have to be those that actually, if you will, announce the faith to our friends, to our family. And what do you mean by that, Father Peroni? I mean very clearly, if somebody says, where do you go to Mass? You don't crawl into a corner and say, I ain't going to. Where do you go? I go to a special church where you're not allowed to go. Specialist trad church. What? What is that? What is that? Where do you go to Mass? I go to Our Lady of Victory. Would you like to join me? We have 4 Masses on Sunday. You know what? Let's work out with your schedule. I'll come and get you and the wife and kids, and we'll go to my parish on Sunday. Why is it so difficult? Well, if somebody says, no, that's on them. It's not on you. But you had the courage, didn't you? Or to speak to your fellow man when they say, so, you're a Catholic, and you say, and you're living in sin. What are you doing, man? Ooh, you want to lose a bunch of buddies? That's a good way to do it. Call out your friends who are afraid to do what is right because they're having too much fun, too much sensuality and fun. Those are mortal sins, and you know it as well as I do, but we have to be the ones who are courageous to say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop that. You claim to be a Catholic, but you're living in sin. You claim to be a Catholic, but you're doing these things. What is the matter with you? That's hard. You're right, it is. It's hard. But are we Catholics or not? Or are we going to be those who get comfortable with letting the other religions rule the roost, right? You see, the Pharisees, they're trying to, if you will, trap St. John. So what are you? What are you exactly? Are you a prophet? Are you the Messiah? What are you? You baptize. What's your deal, man? Ultimately, he makes it very clear who he is. I am this. This is who I am. I am nothing more, nothing less. I am the voice crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. That's who he was. That's what he did. The announcing of our Lord coming. And like I said, he lost his life because of it. Now, could any of you ever imagine that St. John would have been like, no, no, no? I can actually have a very good explanation in my own little mind that St. John was like, so we're going to do it now? Okay, well, fine. Okay. Because he knew he did what God asked him to do, and he did it faithfully. He was faithful. Okay? He was faithful to what he had to do. That should be us as well. You be faithful to what you have to do as a parent, as a son, as a daughter, as a single man, as a married man, as a single woman or a married woman. You do what God is asking you to do, and you do it to the best of your ability, faithfully. And you don't shy away from the fact that you are a Catholic. You are a Catholic. It's something worth thinking about. You know, my dears, today is Gaudete Sunday. We get to wear the pretty vestments today. Very beautiful. And we're preparing for something beautiful. A lot of people have lost sight of what Christmas actually is. What is Christmas? It's a beautiful time of the year. It's a wonderful time of the year. It's true. You know, it's funny how a lot of people have lost sight of the fact that Christmas Day is when the Christmas season begins, not September 3rd. Isn't that interesting? Interesting, isn't it? So people will say to me, Merry Christmas, and I'll say, well, I hope you're having a blessed Advent. They look at me like, what is the matter with this guy? Well, if you were a devout Catholic, you'd know what I mean, because you're in preparation for our Lord's birthday. It's a glorious day. You think about how much excitement goes into birthdays. I was just talking to one of our parishioners. Their child is turning 18, and they're so excited because, 18 years old is when we began our adulthood, right? Very excited about what they're going to do for their daughter, and they're so excited, and they should be, and rightfully so. Good Catholic family. But people give so much emphasis on preparing for events, don't they? Oh my gosh, the birthday's coming for my 2-year-old. We're gonna get a little pony, and we're gonna get all the things my 2-year-old can't even figure out what this is, but nonetheless, it's gonna look great for my friends and their kids. Now, again, if you want to do something nice for your children, knock yourself out. That's fine. But this event that we're coming to celebrate is when our Lord came into the world through the womb of his Blessed Virgin Mother. It's a big deal. We should be preparing ourselves for that glorious day, for that time of year, that time of joy, that time of excitement, that time of great anticipation. Because this is what this is for. We're preparing ourselves for something glorious. Gaudete, for something glorious, something beautiful. So I hope you all have a very blessed remainder of your Advent, and that you use it to the fullest in preparation for the glorious, glorious birthday of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Word made flesh, who dwelt amongst us.